Coming up next, they were the biggest band of the 70s with 8 #1 hits and under 4 years. I mean, they were everywhere until they weren't. What a difference a couple of months make. 1 month they were on top of the world. A few months later, they couldn't get radio to play their music at all. They actually had to hide out, kind of bide time. In fact, in the early 80s, they wrote for other people because their brand was extinct. They disappeared from the charts for 10 years. Then at the end of the 80s, they made one of the biggest comebacks ever. They had a #1 in the UK a year earlier and then blew up in the American charts all over again with a smash that put them back in the game, and they've never looked back. The band that beat astronomical odds to go from hero to zero to hero again. It's the greatest perseverance story in music history, and is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you still love a great encore at a live show, even though it feels like adult peekaboo, you're going to dig this channel of musical nostalgia. Make sure that you subscribe below right now to be a part of our Music History Daily, stories straight from the artists. Fame. What you get is no tomorrow. Fame, what you need, you have to borrow. Of course, lyrics from the late, great David Bowie. I mean, David Bowie knew about the fickle nature of fame all too well. He certainly had his share of trying to move up the down escalator throughout his colorful career. What is Vogue today can easily be out of favor with the public really in the blink of an eye. The entertainment business is more volatile than any other industry. Just no question about that, especially today. The biggest pop group in the world of the 1970s, the Bee Gees, were seemingly at an untouchable apex in 1979. But by the start of the 80s, they were yesterday's news. Radio shunned them like they were lepers. As Barry Gibb stated, when you become famous, you think it's never going to change and people will always love you. But it's simply not true. I mean, labeled as a disco band and overplayed ad nauseum, Barry, Robin, and Morris, they went from the standard of popularity to the punchline for repugnance. This episode is not about their much chronicled fall from the top. It's actually about the incredible, unparalleled resolve of 3 musicians that used the power of their brotherly bond to revive their career in triumphant fashion 3 different times. So the first comeback by the Bee Gees, that was in 1971, when the brothers Gibb reunited after an 18-month breakup where the press proclaimed that the Bee Gees had broken up permanently. The single that returned the Bee Gees to glory then was How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? Smash ballad that not only topped the Billboard Hot 100, it also reunified the brotherhood of Robin and Barry.
How can you mend this broken man?
The Bee Gees' second comeback, that came ironically after the success of How Can You Mend a Broken Heart. The group was labeled at that time as a sappy ballad band. And, with the burgeoning dance and R&B infused pop scene coming on strong, the Gibbs at that moment were passé. And they were exiled to oldies dinner clubs. We've covered this in a previous episode. The single that brought the Bee Gees back from the dead there was Jive Talkin', a complete departure that shocked the world, shot them straight to #1 in 75. Now today, what I want to cover is the amazing third act, the ultimate comeback. The third comeback for the Bee Gees, it may indeed be their most unthinkable because it came nearly 8 years after they went from being the biggest pop act in 79 to being abandoned as if they meant nothing by 1980. Once again, the Bee Gees were given a death sentence that coincided with the fall of disco. It was truly the end of an era. I mean, despite the fact that the Bee Gees were playing sold-out stadiums at the time for their Spirits Having Flown tour, as far as radio DJs with microphones were concerned, the audience no longer wanted to hear the Bee Gees. In 1981, Barry collaborated with Barbra Streisand on her Guilty album. It sold millions and produced several top 10 singles. But for the Bee Gees, it was a different story. The backlash, it just wouldn't go away. They were getting killed. The band continued to release singles as the 80s progressed, but the media rejected every attempt to revive their stature. In 1981, He's a Liar was released coinciding with the run of singles from the Guilty LP. Followed by The Woman in You and Someone Belonging to Someone in 83 from Staying Alive's motion picture soundtrack. Each of those singles completely flopped. For almost a decade, these legends were shut out of the charts as the Bee Gees. Third comeback, it took nearly 8 years to achieve, and it was oh so sweet. The Bee Gees were back in '87 with You Win Again, a song that soared to #1 on the singles chart in 10 European countries, including the United Kingdom. Mirroring the development of most of the Bee Gees songs, the melody for You Win Again, that came first, and it arrived in a sudden, dramatic fashion. Barry Gibb recalled that he sprung out of bed around 4 a.m., 4 in the morning, with a ready-made melody. It came to him during a dream, and he just didn't want to lose it. Now, there were many nights when a melody popped into Barry's head, so he actually kept a compact recorder at his bedside to capture it before it was gone. On this occasion, though, he couldn't find his recorder, so he was running around the house frantically looking for something to record what he had just dreamed. He didn't want to lose the melody. The melody, along with the chorus, became the foundation for You Win Again. Barry believed that he had dreamed something really exciting. When he told Mo and Robin about the chorus, they got together quickly to write lyrics that would fit the melody. You Win Again, that was centered around a man losing the battle of love. Barry's concept for the song's narrative was that a romantic relationship can be a competition for attention, support, and undying devotion. Ultimately, there is a surrender for a lifetime of love. Initially, the brothers, they were unsure how You Win Again would evolve into a complete song. They recorded a demo in Morris's garage, and for a time the tape sat in Mo's garage, just collecting dust. However, in September of 1986, the tape was dusted off to re-record for their ESP album. The demo featured percussion stomps that had a protruding rhythmic marching cadence, to summon the Battle of Love theme. ESP, the 17th Bee Gees album, it welcomed another return for Brothers Gibb when they were reunited with Arif Mardin, the genius record producer that was invaluable in the creation of their last comeback, Jive Talkin'. With Arif as co-producer for ESP, they continued to work at Mo's place, a home studio that they called Panther House, actually. Perry played Arif and engineer Scott Glazer a demo of You Win Again with just Barry singing over a guitar bed. Arif and Scott wanted the stomps from the original demo that they had heard, and Mo had a tough time locating what he had done with the tracks. When he found the tracks, he actually programmed them on a Fairlight CMI. He brought them to Criteria Studios, and they finished the song. Robin, Morris, and Barry, they all sang on You Win Again, and their legendary harmonies were better than ever. Barry placed rhythm guitar on the recording with Morris and Robbie Condor on keyboards. Condor also handled the synthesizer bass. The Bee Gees were so certain that You Win Again could be a huge hit, they spent a month working on the song, and they remixed it to perfection. A 32-track recorder was used that Arif characterized as being very, very brittle. The tempo of the definitive version of You Win Again was increased about a quarter tone to accentuate the song's infectious rhythm. Now, when You Win Again was completed, the Bee Gees were supremely confident that they had an undeniable smash hit. But what would the outside world think about it? The uncertainty, it made everybody in the Bee Gees camp very anxious. The next move was playing the song for Mo Austin and the other Warner Brothers label executives. The label, for their part, they hated the stomping percussion in the intro, and they actually asked the band to remove it. They said, this is a great song, but take out the stomps. That was the directive. The Bee Gees, though, they put their proverbial foot down, and they told the big shots from the label that the stomp was going to stay. The stomp led the way for You Win Again as the single valiantly marched to the top of the pop charts all over the world, really. Must have been an amazingly emotional moment for the Bee Gees when You Win Again secured the #1 spot in the UK.
As a brand new #1. What a comeback. The last time they were in the top 10 was in 1979 with a song called Tragedy.
And it just goes to prove that if you have a great song, you can win again.
You Win Again, it was an international smash in 1987. But you know what? The Bee Gees' banishment in America, it continued on. The single peaked at an incredulous number 75 on the Billboard Hot 100. During a TV interview to promote the ESP album, a frustrated Barry Gibb looked at the camera and, exasperated, he pled with the media gatekeepers in the US to grow up. We're a pop group, not a political force. We're just making music.
I don't think there's any reason to chalk us off because we existed in the 70s and we would like to exist in the 80s, Does anybody mind if we exist in the 80s? Thank you.
It took another 2 years for the Bee Gees to finally get back to the top 10 in America. Of course, where they dominated the pop culture landscape with a historic run from 1975 to 1980. And they were summarily punished for their success, really. The return to the top 10, it was accomplished with the title track for their 18th studio album, One. They actually had to do another song to hit it. It was a love song about the union of marriage. One ascended to #7 on the Billboard Hot 100 in late '89, along with top 10 placements in Canada and throughout South America. However, the long-awaited resurgence in the States, it was bittersweet for this band. It came during a time of deep sadness over the death of their youngest sibling, Andy. Less than a year before the release of One, it was announced that Andy Gibb would become the 4th member of the Bee Gees. Actually, a lot of people forget about that. It was thrilling news for millions of Bee Gees fans around the world. A few months later, while setting up the plan for the One album, Andy passed away from heart failure 5 days after his 30th birthday. So young. Although Barry, Robin, and Morris didn't witness the chaos surrounding Andy's reckless lifestyle, they were definitely aware of it. The family hoped that Andy was turning the corner after his last stint at rehab. However, it was not to be. Andy slipped into his old bad habits, and his drug abuse terminally damaged his heart. Barry, Robin, and Morris, they gathered themselves after the tragedy, and they made another great album that was inspired by the spirit of their little brother. A few weeks after Andy's death, big brother Barry, Andy's hero, wrote the song Wish You Were Here. It was one of the last tracks added to the One album, actually. Poetically, the One album and the title cut, it brought the Bee Gees back to platinum territory in America. It was a long trip. The One album eventually sold about 2 million copies. I mean, the Bee Gees, they got the monkey off their back, with the success of ESPN 1, both million sellers, actually multi-platinum. It also alleviated the frustrating agony of wondering why they were dismissed in the 80s, as if their success had meant nothing before. They could concentrate on making music without worrying about radio play and chart position. Again, they got the monkey off their back. When Morris died in 2003, though, Barry and Robin had heavy discussions about whether to carry on as the Bee Gees. Robin desperately wanted it, but Barry declined. He couldn't imagine the Bee Gees without Morris. Barry seriously contemplated retiring from music when Robin passed in 2012 altogether. But then he had an overwhelming realization that as the surviving Bee Gee, it was his responsibility to keep the music alive, for the legacy that he and his brothers, including Andy, had built. Man, I remember this comeback like it was yesterday. My dad, he bought every single album that the Bee Gees put out. We had him all on vinyl, all on CD or tape. My mom and dad, they loved him. They were always rooting for him. And that extended to me as well. When ESP came out, my dad bought the cassette. He played it nonstop for weeks. I mean, we both agreed that You Win Again, it was going to be a huge hit, was going to be the comeback. But every week as I listened to the American Top 40 with Casey Kasem, I just never heard it. My dad knew I memorized the chart positions, and he knew my dedication to this weekly show. He'd ask me every single week, how's it doing? How's You Win Again doing? Is it going to make it? It's almost as if it was like a football score, or wondering the fate of his favorite team. So since I didn't hear it in the top 40, I started looking at the actual Billboard Hot 100 chart, and they posted it up in the Musicland store in the mall. I noticed that it stalled in the higher reaches of the chart. It peaked at number 75. I just couldn't understand it. It was such a great song. How sweet it was when in the fall of 1989, I brought my dad into my room with the radio playing and hearing the announcement that the Bee Gees had returned to the top 10 for the first time in 10 years. Man, I remember that moment with my dad. He was so excited, cheering on one of his favorite bands. After we thought that You Win Again would be the big comeback. It was a special moment. But it was also the end of an era in a lot of ways. As the 80s gave way to the 90s, something changed in top 40 music. But how sweet it was that the brothers Gibb could break through at the end of that wonderful era and prove that they were timeless once again.
Count on me, I'll never let you down.
Even after we've lost 2 of the 3 in the original group and 3 of the 4 musical brothers Gibb, Barry is vigilant that the music lives. His mission is to do everything in his power to enhance the legacy of the Bee Gees, which he has done so prominently.
Come on along, let me take you by the hand. I just gotta get a message to you.
The Bee Gees battled back from career low points that could have ended their magnificent career. 3 times. 3 times. It was fame that led to sibling rivalry and jealousy that almost destroyed the group in 1970. Ironically, it was too much fame that nearly destroyed him in 1980.
Much harder to come by. I'm waiting in line.
Bent, but not broken. It was the unbreakable resolve of their brotherhood that really held them together. In the end, it was that special bond of brotherhood that made the Bee Gees one of the most extraordinary groups of the rock era. Together, Barry, Robin, and Morris, the Gibbs, were one. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Do you remember this big comeback? What's your favorite era of the Bee Gees? Tell us about it in the comments below. What are your memories of the song, of these songs? What did you think about this era of music? Let's have a great discussion as usual. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We would love to have you as part of our community. We talk about music every day. We jump in the time machine. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.